All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with the council meeting. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see the council be used and the seats filled. So thank you so much for all being here. I am Rosalba Dominguez from District 3, and we have all the council members present today. We're going to go ahead and get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. So Ms. Josie Valdez, if you can come up. I have asked Josie to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much, Josie, for being here. All right, I'll go ahead and move on to the approval of council meeting minutes for April 2nd, 2024. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve the minutes of April 2nd, 2024.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you so much. I got a first and a second. Brooke, can you call the roll, please?
Ms. Turner.
Aye.
Mr. Hawk.
Aye.
Mr. Pickett.
Aye.
Ms. Cotter.
Aye.
Ms. Dominguez.
Aye. All right, that has been passed and moved, and we'll go ahead and continue on our agenda with the oath of office for Justice Court Judge Spencer Banks, Mayor Hales, and Brooke Smith presenting.
We'll use this. There you are. Man, look at him. He puts that robe on and he marched right up here. This is Spencer Banks, Honorable Judge Spencer Banks. He was sworn in at a few days ago at the court, and we wanted to do one to be able to recognize him here and welcome him to our city. And just for those of you that don't know, Paul Thompson, our former judge, retired. You age out, believe it or not, as a judge. So, and that's age, not a private thing, it's 75. So when you're 75 years old, what a novel idea, huh? Anyway, you age out, and then we had the opportunity to interview Spencer, and his family's here today, so we'd like to welcome you here and grateful for your service, and we look forward to many, many years working with you. And are we still doing our little break after? Okay, so after this swearing in, then we're going to take just a few minute break. There's some refreshments back there. Everyone's welcome to have some, and we'll just take a few minutes and do that, just to give our thanks and recognition to Judge Banks. And so Brooke is going to swear him in now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to have you stand by the mic. Do you want this one?
You tell me, whatever.
I'll take this one, and then at least you can face the audience. There? Is that good for everyone? Okay. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Spencer Banks,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of the State
the state of Utah, and that I will discharge the duties of my office
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
as a Murray City Municipal Justice Court Judge
as a Murray City Municipal Justice Court Judge
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Judge. Would you like to say any remarks?
Sure, I won't be too long because, as was mentioned, my family's here, so I appreciate their support. But as I mentioned to my 6-year-old, we were going to have some treats after this, so I don't want to deprive her for too long. But I just want to thank Mayor Hales, the council, GL Critchfield as the city attorney for the support that you've all had for me throughout this process. It's been an amazing process. I'm truly honored and humbled to have been selected to serve as the next Murray Justice Court judge. I know I have big shoes to fill with Judge Thompson retiring, but I'm beyond excited to take on this role to represent Murray For those of you who don't know, I previously worked here at Murray back in 2018 and 2019 as a prosecutor, and I'm thrilled to be back in Murray. I love my time here, and I'm so excited to be able to be back and return to Murray. I'd also like to thank Jim Peters. He's there with the Administrative Office of the Courts. He's been a great support throughout this process as well. I wouldn't be here without just numerous people who have supported me from the beginning. So I'm thankful for the opportunity that I have, and I'm looking forward to serving the city of Murray, and hopefully for a good long time. We'll see if I last as long as Judge Thompson did, but that's quite a number to reach. But in the meantime, I'm excited to get going. I've got a few days under my belt. It's been a great transition, great staff at the Justice Court, and we're excited to continue to put forth good work for all of you. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Judge. Does anybody on the dais have any comments or? All right, thank you. I will take a motion for a 15-minute break.
I make a motion for, sorry. I will make a motion to do a 15-minute break to welcome our new Judge Banks in. Thank you.
Can I get a second?
I second that.
All right, perfect. Everyone say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. We're going to take a 15-minute break, and we're going to have refreshments in the Poplar Room right next door. And then we'll come back and we'll start with citizen comments. All right, welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much, Judge, and to your family, and you guys have a great evening. We're going to go ahead and get started, and I just want to clarify before we move forward. Citizen comments, there is a public hearing section I'm sure most of you are here for. If you want to wait to give your comments then, you're welcome to. But citizen comments are anything on the agenda or even any comments that you have. So if you want to wait for the public hearing, you're welcome to do that. And we'll go ahead and move forward to citizen comments. Citizen comments, if you can please state your name and district. We do have your information at the sign up either way. And Crystal, where are you? Crystal has forms if you have any comments, and she can get those to you. There's also some on the back table over here, is that correct? On that table? No? Okay, just with Crystal. Oh, she has all the clipboards. Okay. Let's go ahead and get started with citizen comments. If you want to come up to the mics, again, state your name and your district and your comment. So I will open it up. Come on over, Jeff Evans. Oh, sorry, I already know your name.
Jeff Evans, Murray Lifer. Pam, you're my person, District 2. I think that just happened a couple of years ago. It would have been nice to have Paul in the past, but you moved the lines, so there you go. I'm just going to be planting some seeds in the back of your heads to marinate a little bit. I had the wonderful, I think I have 3 minutes, but I'll be quick. I had the wonderful experience of being on the task force for the Murray Park Amphitheater and also the Murray Theater, of discovering programming and best uses of our facilities in that respect. So with that said, one of the things, and also I spent 4 years on our Arts Advisory Board as well. But the common thread is diversity in our programming for our extremely diverse population. And first and foremost, I'm an extremely competitive person. And I am a flag bearer for our town. And when I see other cities smoking us in other departments, it gets me to come up and stand here and look at you and tell you what I'm thinking. And that is, I think we have the greatest opportunity as far as our transit locations. We're going to be talking later about building a walkable downtown and all that sort of thing. But we need to talk about community assets, which is also the programming that we do for our citizens, and also hopefully to draw other citizens into our city to enjoy our assets. And so I would hope that one day that everybody will be on pins and needles when we announce our concert series. Kind of like they do with the Red Butte or Ogden or Sandy or even Layton. Layton's getting in the game these days. I think that would be awesome, and I think our businesses downtown would enjoy having people coming into our town to see shows rather than getting on the train to go out of town to see shows. 30 seconds. Anyway, with that said, I love our Parks Department, and I think we should look into a little bit more programming. Our current programming, I think we have, all the bands are glorified 70s cover bands. So everybody who listened to Skinny Johnny Mitchell on KCPX, and that dates me right there, your concert series is awesome this year, but there's about 90% of our population that needs a little bit better, okay?
Thank you,
very
Jeff.
much.
Perfect timing. All right. Anyone else for the section of citizen comments? Everybody with the power presentations today. I love it.
As soon as I get ready. Number 8 in a minute. My name is Dylan Barney. I live in Murray. I forget which district I'm in, but I'm just over here on Box Elder Street. So
District 1.
Paul, thank you. I know that around voting time, but in between then, I just take, anyway. The comments I'd like to make is first to thank Murray City for cleaning up some weeds that had been growing and causing an eyesore in this local area on property that Murray City owned. And now that they are cut down and cleaned up, they do look considerably better and make things safer and less of a fire hazard. The other concern I've got is right now as we speak, there is a car parked in front of a fire hydrant in front of my house, partially blocking my driveway. Also on Fifth Avenue, there's cars on both sides of the street, and on Hanauer, there's cars on both sides of the street, which limits the traffic to one-way traffic. And the other day I was in Taylorsville, and I saw this sign that says parking by permit only. And I was wondering if there's any way that in certain instances that, especially in areas like this where businesses are going to be coming in, that the residents that live here and have lived here for a long time can have signs like this put up in front of their properties so that they are not forced out by people that come in from outside or from other venues. Anyway, also the fire hydrant that is shown there is a bright red, and I've discussed talking to somebody about getting the one in front of my house painted because it's getting, the color on it is deteriorating, and that's been addressed by the mayor, and I appreciate that, and hopefully it'll get painted soon, or if they can provide me with the paint, I'll do that. And if they could provide me with the paint, I would paint the curb where the car is parked in front of the fire hydrant. To me, it creates a safety concern, and in the later part of this meeting, I'll discuss something about that isn't really appropriate right now, but I just wanted to thank the city for cleaning up what needed to be cleaned up, and thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, perfect. I will go ahead and close out the citizens' comment portion of the evening, and we'll go ahead and move forward on our agenda. We're going to go ahead and start with public hearing number 1, consider an ordinance relating, let me make sure I'm not, sorry. Yes, we're going to go to consent agenda, and we're going to go ahead and consider the mayor's appointment of Jan Cox to the Shade Tree Commission for a term of June 30th, 2024 to June 30th, 2027. Mayor Cox.
Thank you. Jan, Cox, will you come forward, please? How are you? Good. This is Jan Cox, and as I push that off, you all had the opportunity to read about her. I had the opportunity to interview with Jan, and Jan has been a resident of Murray City for a lot of years. Her husband served on our council a few years back, and she's always had a desire to serve on a committee, and she's made that really clear. And when this came up, we thought, perfect. We have 5 people on this commission, the Shade Tree Commission, and every one of them have decided to retire. At the same time, they're moving. They've been on it for years. So Jan, you're the head of this department now. If they confirm you are the head of the Shade Tree Commission. How do you like that?
He told me I'm the oldest.
No, I didn't say oldest. I said longest living. No, I didn't say that. Anyway, so we would like to present the name Jan Cox to serve on our Shade Tree Committee to the council.
Okay, does anybody have any comments? I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the mayor's appointment of Jan Cox to the Shade Tree Commission for a term from June 30th, 2024 to June 30th, 2027. That's a long time, Jan.
I know.
Okay, I need a second.
I second it.
All right, perfect. Brooke?
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Hawk?
Sure. Aye.
Mr. Pickett?
Aye.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes.
And Ms. Dominguez?
No, thank you. All right, that has been passed, and we will move forward.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, and Jan, thank you for your willingness to serve. We really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and move forward with the public hearing. And we're going to go ahead and consider an ordinance relating to the land use amends the general plan from parks and open space to medium-density residential and amends zoning map from A1 zoning district to R16 medium-density family for the properties located at 1177 West Bullion Street, Murray City. Zachary Smallwood presenting.
Hello, Council. Nice to see you tonight. Sorry, I'm getting everything prepped. Okay. Yeah, so this is a request from Jake Larson with Lartep Properties to, like you mentioned, to amend the general plan's future land use map from parks and open space to medium-density residential, and a request for a zone map amendment from A1 agricultural to R16 medium-density single-family. The properties are located here, just west of the Jordan River. Let me get my little laser pointer guide there. Just west of the Jordan River along Bullion Street. The property is approximately 2.46 acres. As I mentioned, it's in the agricultural zone, and it is located in the general plan as parks and open space. So as I was doing research for this request, I couldn't find why it was switched over to, I believe in the 2003 general plan, this was not listed as parks and open space, and there's no plan for a park or open space in this area. It's been used by the Fish and Game properties here. So I don't know why it was actually changed between the 2003 and 2017 plan. So we are recommending approval for it based on a few elements in the general plan. I don't remember what chapter it is. It's the Land Use and Urban Design chapter. Objective 9, provide a mix of housing options and residential zones to meet a diverse range of needs related to lifestyle and demographics. We believe that transitioning this to an R16 zone will allow for greater single-family home availability within the city. In the neighborhoods and housing, objective 1 and 3, so preserve and stabilize current neighborhoods. This will not revitalize, it will stabilize the area by cleaning up some of the wild open space in that area, where we currently have like the Jordan River Parkway and things on more on the east side. This will help preserve and kind of create a buffer to that. Encourage housing options for a variety of age, family size, and financial levels. It's clear, and I'm sure you guys are aware through the state that, you know, one of the largest costs to developing housing is the property, the land on which it sits. So making a smaller lot with it, single family, does help the affordability. It's still going to probably be expensive because that's housing in this valley, but it reduces some of that cost. So allowed uses in the two different zones. The A1, which is the existing, does allow for single-family dwellings on a minimum of 1 acre lot. It allows medical cannabis pharmacies and production, parks, field and seed crops, things of those natures. It does allow for commercial animal husbandry uses and commercial agriculture as a conditional use. In the proposed R16 zone, it is single-family detached dwellings on 6,000 square foot lots. Residential child care facilities, charter schools, those are permitted uses. Conditional are attached single-family dwellings in planned unit developments. Mr. Larson doesn't have any intention on doing a planned unit development in that area. Also conditional uses, schools, churches, cemeteries, libraries. A lot of your run-of-the-mill stuff that you'd see in a single-family zone. Specific zoning standards. So in the A1, the existing zone, like I said, 1 acre minimum per single-family lot. Height is 35 to 40 feet with a conditional use permit. Front yard setbacks 30 feet, rear yard 25, side is 10, and corner side is 20. Parking is the same between the two zones, is 2 spaces per unit, per dwelling. And then, so in the R16, again, 6,000 square foot lot, height is limited to 30 feet, so it's actually 5 feet lower, and then 5 feet lower from the R18 zone and the R110 zone, which is near this area as well. So these will actually be shorter homes. Front yard setback 20, rear yard is 25, sides are 5, and then a corner yard setback is 20 feet. So findings here, we do believe that the general plan, the general plan does provide flexibility in its implementation and execution of the goals, kind of as I outlined in those objectives. So the proposed zone amendment from A1 to R16 has been considered based on the characteristics of the site and the surrounding area. And we feel that the potential impacts of the zone change can be managed within the densities and uses allowed by the zone. And the proposed zone map amendment conforms and moves forward the goals of and objectives of the Murray City General Plan, and will allow for appropriate development of the subject property. Planning Commission action. So the Planning Commission held a public hearing on March 7th, 2024. 40 public notices were sent to neighboring property owners. There were approximately 4 public comments at the meeting, and the Planning Commission voted 6-0 to forward a recommendation of approval for both applications. So with that, staff is recommending that the that the City Council approve the general plan amendment and the zone map amendment as in the staff report. So happy to take any questions, comments.
Council, any questions about this item?
I have a comment. We have heard a lot from our residents and the desire to have single-family homes that people can buy and grow and settle here. And we're happy, at least people in my district are happy to have a situation like this where we can have single-family homes built in this area. So I'm grateful for this recommendation.
Great.
The gentleman that is selling the property, the Fish and Game, does he have any plans of selling any more of that property, or does he have plans to?
He was at the
Take
planning
care of it?
commission meeting. I don't know if he's here this evening. I apologize.
Okay.
If somebody's waving frantically behind me, I apologize. But from the planning commission meeting, he had stated that the sale of this property will actually allow them to reinvest in the remaining property. I think their hope is that they can create like a little fishery for people to go in. Obviously, we can't hold them to that, but he had mentioned that his goal was to reinvest back into that property a little bit as well.
Okay, and then some of the comments, I'm very excited for Mr. Larson. He said that his plans is to build 11 single-family dwellings, which is below the maximum allowed. They are smaller than others located in Murray. The design is cohesive to the area, and he feels the plans are mindful of traffic and pedestrians, and he's aware that many people that use the trailhead nearby, and he's being mindful to consider all of the surrounding home developments. I really appreciate that out of Jake.
Yep.
He's very conscious about that. And as far as the traffic, I've lived on Bullion since 1985, and so we all have to squish in and make room for everybody. So it's a wonderful plan, and I'm very excited to see this come forward.
Great.
Okay. If you want to wait for comments, you're welcome to as well, but we're going to go ahead and open it up to a public hearing. Again, please come to the mic. You have 3 minutes to speak, and Crystal will also take your information.
Good afternoon. My name's Gregory Costello, and I live across the street from this proposed development. I'm kind of opposed to the R16. I developed 6 acres behind me, and that was R110. And you were strict on enforcing the R18, R110 in that area at that time. And so that was in the master plan, and we had to go according to the master plan. And so I'm conflicted why you're putting in an R16 in R18 abutting up to R110s. You know, it just seems like it's not quite feasible to do something like that. I know that you like, you know, lower cost housing, but I don't think that I would like that across the street from me. I think that's about all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
Caroline Costello. I live on 1172 West Bullion Street, and Pam is my representative. And I just want to add to Greg's comment, and that is that when we sold that property, we sold 6 acres and they put 14 houses on 6 acres, or it was plotted for 14 houses. So it kind of takes my breath away when I hear that it's 2.5 acres and 11 homes. And that sounds pretty congested to me. Also, if they're going to do a wildlife preserve right next to it, or some kind of thing like that, it seems like a dichotomy of errors if you're going to have 11 homes and then try to have wildlife and the sanctuary of wildlife, and when you have dogs and children, and it just doesn't seem like it would mesh together very well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, how you doing? My name is Joe Christensen. I actually bought one of the lots the Costello lots. So I live in this area and I'm pretty familiar with the history of it. And just to agree with what they said, when this city council considered the developments, the Ivory development in that area, the Costello or Goff development in that area, there was a consistent agreement among the council that that area would be developed as R110, R18 at a minimum. So while Larson does present an interesting proposal, there's a real incongruency with this council to allow for an R16 to be packed in a neighborhood where the social contract that the council made to the people who live there was going to be that there was going to be R18 and R110 homes. So I appreciate what Mr. Larson's attempting to do. I would like to ask the council to consider sticking to the social contract that you made to us initially and asking Mr. Larson to reconsider a development with a minimum lot size in the R18 range. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. I will also entertain if there is a sponsor or anybody with the landowner to come up or answer any question. I don't know. I know I'm getting a bunch of stares, but I just got approval to do that. So, okay, if no one's up here, that's great. But I do have a follow-up question maybe for Zach, if anybody else has any other questions.
Yeah.
Okay, can you talk to me a little bit about the future land use map and what this area was zoned for in the future land use map?
So the future land use map designation was parks and open space. It was never designated as anything residential at all. The 2003, I believe it was designated as just residential. It didn't have, I think, a low density or medium density at that time.
And it didn't.
I don't know for 100% sure. But.
Okay, well, could we, I mean, I'm just curious of what the future land use map dictated for the area. If it was, I mean, in my area, I know which areas would be R16 or whatnot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like that's something that you should know.
So in the current one, it's designated as parks and open space, which is just parks.
And what about the
and
area,
open space.
like surrounding area? Is
It's
it-
all low density residential, except for when you get nearby the Bullion Place, which is the one off of.
Or like a little bit up by
where
the
Mike
power
Brodsky-
lines?
Yep.
Okay. In that area, have we seen any other types of housing other than like our, just single-family homes?
Yeah, so I believe,
So currently, we have townhomes, and currently there's...
townhomes in that
I'm familiar
area.
with the area because my aunt and uncle live there.
Also, so you have the townhomes that are being built on Bullion Place, you have the single-family homes on Trip Lane, which are R16. When those will go in, that was rezoned to R16.
Also, there's an existing neighborhood that has been there for quite some time on Walden. I can't remember, it's not Walden Hills, it's not Walden Meadows, it's one of the Walden, Jeff Evans, Walden Glen.
Yeah.
Walden Glen, there are smaller lots as well.
Yeah.
That subdivision has been there for about 30 years.
Yeah, so I think the one that they're speaking about is on 53rd, right off of 5300 South. That is all in an R16 zone as well, that directly connects to Bullion, as well as it's just north of that area. I believe the Costello Estates actually abuts up to that R16.
That's correct.
Okay, so
You grab my laptop.
it said there was an agreement, a social contract. What was that all about? Because I was not on the council at that time.
So-
when the Costellos were building.
So the social.
So I don't know any, so you got to pick me up to speed on that one.
So that is, it's a phrase. It's kind of like it doesn't apply to zoning. Is really what it is that it's, the social contract is, it's a figure of speech, really. And GL might be able to explain it since you're so good with contracts.
So I think the idea, and I don't want to speak for Mr. Christensen, but the idea is that when he's referring to the R110, R18 issues, there was a time when the council was voted to keep it that way and wanted it to stay that way. And I think what he's suggesting is there is some spillover moral obligation to keep it that way and to continue what the other council had. However, we know from many years of experience that one council cannot bind the next council, first of all. Secondly, I think one of the changes that has occurred is years ago, 2003-ish, the legislature allowed a city to choose whether your general plan would be mandatory or permissive. And there was a time when the city chose to make it mandatory so that you had to follow whatever was in the general plan. The legislature changed that. It's now a permissive decision by the city council as to whether to follow the general plan. And the legislature has kind of, I don't want to say pushed us that way, but has heavily directed us in that direction not to make it mandatory.
Unless it comes to moderate income housing.
What did you say?
Unless it comes to moderate income housing, but that's a different
Yeah,
aside.
okay.
That does get to one of the points that, because I do want to bring that up. My comment earlier where lower cost lots, that doesn't mean low income. These will still be
Right.
very expensive homes, I'm
Oh,
sure.
yes.
Market rate homes.
Yeah.
They will not be low income housing.
Right.
I can almost guarantee that. Yeah, just so I wanted to clarify
Yes.
that it's not low income housing, it's a lower cost because of the land cost.
So with the history, do we know when these other lots were changed from an A1 to an R18 or R110?
It was
The
around
R110?
2017, I want to say, for, let me go back here. Yeah, the Ivory subdivision, which is located here. These were in 2017 and were rezoned to that prior, I think, to the adoption of the 2017 general plan. That or immediately after it was adopted.
So why are we not holding Mr. Larson to the same conditions as we did with Mr. Costello?
That's because.
Is it because of the legislatures?
No, not necessarily. What you're doing now is hearing an application, and staff supports that application. That's up to you whether you want, the council, if you want to follow those same rules. It would, that's entirely up to the council if you want to follow those same rules. We have supported it as staff, mostly because we do see what the legislature is asking of cities to move these smaller lots forward. And that's another reason why we're in support of it.
I do not know the history of when Mr. Costello applied to develop his his A1 property to housing.
Yeah.
He could have applied for the same zoning. It may not have been accepted. He chose to build in the zoning that he has now. I don't really know the background on that, but this, as Zach said, is simply an application asking for approval.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you. I think we're good there. I will go ahead and ask for a motion.
Did you close the?
Oh, yes. Let me close citizen comments now. Thank you, Pam. Go ahead. Sorry. We can ask questions still.
Sorry. This isn't my district, but I'm really curious. It is yours, right, Pam? Oh, I'm sorry. I was
It's
thinking-
mine. She just lives down the street, so.
So Paul, what kind of feedback have you been getting? Do you have concerns about this or?
I have, aside from what's been written in the comments from the Planning Commission, I have not heard anybody speak against this project. In fact, I've heard from my constituents that they love the idea of having something that is a single-family owned building rather than the apartment complex going into that land.
And that's their concern?
That's what my people were concerned, that someone would come in and buy that land and put an apartment complex there. And the fact that someone's coming in, putting in single-family residences, they're okay with that.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
And Councilmember, you've said you've went and knocked on doors and talked to people about this too?
No, I haven't knocked on this one. I've just simply had conversations with people about the development. So I haven't sought out the exact neighbors that live around there. It's just come up in conversations. What do you guys think about having single-family homes in our district? And the side always love it.
Okay. All right. I will take a motion from anyone. Take a motion.
I will make a motion to amend general plan and zone map to rezone this area, the property from A1 to R16.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Brooke?
Ms. Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Hawk,
Aye.
Mr. Pickett,
Aye.
Ms. Cotter,
Aye.
Ms. Dominguez.
Before I give my response, I just want to say I do support higher density housing in areas of the city. I think it brings a harmonious balance within the city, and if we do it right. And I have all the faith in our planning commission, and our planning department to do that, and working with developers or with property owners in doing that. When the Ivory homes did go up, I was worried about the water table in that area. I had a long discussion with my uncle about that, who lives in the area, and what was to come. So I hear your all's concern. I totally get it, but this is a part about being invested in your community and being invested in what is to come in your community and how it's shaped and what that looks like. And I hope that you don't feel like we're not listening to you, because we very much are. But with that, I am going to vote no on this project. So that is my answer to that. Okay, we'll go ahead and move forward to the next item, to public hearing number 2. And with that, public hearing number 2 is consider an ordinance related to land use, amends the general plan to adopt the Murray City Center MCCD strategic plan, and Zachary is presenting again.
Thank you, guys. Let's get this up. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to begin with a little history of the downtown. Not ancient history. I shouldn't say ancient, because the 80s is not ancient. But I will not go that far. Back before 2011, this was all in an area called the DHOD, which stands for the Downtown Historic Overlay District. That kind of was an overlay zone. Doesn't really matter what that means at this point. But in 2011, the city council at the time, with the mayor at the time, worked through numerous, as you can see on the slide in front of you, discussions and meetings about a proposed Murray City Center District zone, which would replace that DHOD and provide for a new downtown for Murray City. So at that time, the council and the administration wanted a contemporary with a contemporary downtown with mid and high rise architecture, pretty much. So you can see these are pulled straight from that concept master plan. Here you can kind of see what the layout started to look like with Block 1, different phases, performing arts, theater, things like that. So here's some additional photos with, the proposed heights, the look and feel of the area, as well as, this massing diagram, which shows something that looks very different than I think this council, this administration, and this staff actually would want to see in the downtown. So since that time, so they did approve the MCCD. At that time, it allowed for unlimited height and unlimited density and very reduced parking requirements. I think it was down to 1 space per unit for everything. And pretty low for commercial as well. Since that's been adopted, there's been about 6. Sorry, let me back up here. This is the current map of the MCCD zone, which is the historic area of downtown Murray. So between 2017 and today, approximately 6 text amendment changes have occurred. Some reducing height, some reducing density, some for specific properties. There's been a lot has changed in that time. I believe part of that is part of the reason we have not received a lot of redevelopment in the city. Developers get scared when there's too much change going on in a code. They get weary and are afraid to develop because their project might get sunk by a text amendment or something like that. So let's see. The previous administration attempted to redevelop Block 1 in 2020, 2021. I think most of you were on here. They proposed a building to the RDA by Eadlin Company for Block 1. And through public engagement, the city decided not to move forward with that proposal. And instead, the city council wanted to work towards more public engagement on what the downtown should be. So that led to, in 2022, the RDA commissioning a scientific survey by Y2 Analytics to gauge public support for redevelopment and additional information as to what the public wanted to see down there. After we received that information, we continued with that route of additional public input. The RDA commissioned this plan, the downtown strategic area plan, and we hired downtown redevelopment services at the request of multiple residents in the city. They were really impressed with Ben Levenger at the time, and so the city did move forward with that process. And that's kind of where we are today. So that's just kind of whirlwind through all of that. So here today for the downtown strategic plan, nearly all planning documents have a similar layout, which is your existing conditions, public input, and recommendations. In a nutshell, that's typically how planning documents are run, and this is how that one is done as well. So before jumping in to the meat of the document, it's important that I state that the concepts in this plan are tailored toward Block 1 with the intention of expanding that out to the entire MCCD. There was discussion on the east side of State Street as part of this plan, and that was removed in conjunction with the steering committee at that time. So existing conditions. The plan begins by reviewing Murray City as a whole. When you get down into this, about roughly around 100 acres, it's hard to get demographic information at that scale. You can't really find population estimates at that scale with that. So in summary, the SWOT analysis kind of gives the overall review of the area. So with that, strengths, so SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. These are common things that are conducted when reviewing existing conditions of things. So some of the strengths in the area, less than a mile from Front Runner and Track Station. It's already a solidified mixed-use district. And the zoning code is a well-thought-out code to improve downtown's urban feel, and it's detailed and tailored. So weaknesses, limited landscaping throughout the area, urban design mismatches between the historic district status and the urban design elements, and also minimal pedestrian infrastructure. And I believe there was another one in there about, bicyclist activity. Opportunities, Murray City is a regional commercial destination with the mall. We have the population that comes into this city every day. And so being able to capitalize on that in our downtown is easy to do. Downtown, again, that proximity to Front Runner and Track Station provides for opportunities to capture transit riders and make this more of a destination. The RDA-owned land provides a significant opportunity for defining the downtown's character. We've already started that with the building we're all standing in now, which has kind of facilitated us moving so quickly on this as well. We're all sitting right next to the RDA-owned property. So some of the threats, State Street is always going to be a concern. It's a fast-moving street with tractor trailers. The speed limit of 40 miles per hour also significantly impacts pedestrian and bicycle safety in this area. So moving on to public input synopsis, we did have 2 public workshops held about a month apart in, I believe, August and September. And these were fairly well attended, and most of the architectural features that you'll see in the following pages are representative of those comments. Downtown Redevelopment Services also did have a public survey, online survey up for about a month as well. So you can read some of the things in here as well, safety concerns with downtown, parks and public space, gathering spaces were ranked as the 5 most, important public amenities to have downtown, street trees, event programming, things of that nature. So this is kind of the big issue with the plan that we've noticed as planning staff is this page here, which is proposed that there. It's an indication based on stakeholder interviews and public comments and in the synopsis area that were shown as anticipated to be demolished or kept. This is not necessarily the city's approach to it, but it was based on stakeholder interviews. So moving on to the recommendations, there were a total of 8 recommendations for the city to work on to implement this plan to help redevelop downtown. First one is implement a form-based code. Timing, short-term, 0 to 2 years. We are working on that aggressively. If you'll remember, the city council did vote to fund for the form-based code. RFPs are already back, and we'll probably have a firm selected by the end of the week. So that's moving quickly. And then the code, each one of the RFP applicants have said that they can meet that 6-month time frame. So we're moving very quickly on that. Recommendation 2 is update and enforce the downtown design guidelines. Again, a short-term time frame, and Murray City responsible for that. This one was more of in preparation for a form-based code. I anticipate that the design guidelines will probably go away with the form-based code, because the form-based code will be the design standards at that point instead of guidelines. Recommendation 3, perform a parking warrant analysis within 3 to 6 years. Murray City and the RDA working together to take care of that, look at parking in the area. Recommendation 4, create an infrastructure project schedule to improve multimodal accessibility within the city-owned right-of-way. Again, in the short term, 0 to 2 years with Murray City and RDA. Recommendation 5, partner with UDOT to improve multimodal accessibility on State Street, long-term 7 to 10 years. I recently, probably about 2 weeks ago, met with UDOT planners and expressed, some of our concerns with State Street and some of the things that are going on. And there is a willingness to have additional conversations on how we can better facilitate crossings across State Street to the east and west. So already starting to work on that. That is going to be a long-term thing, though, for us to kind of move forward on. Recommendation 6 is program public spaces within downtown Murray. Much like the Parks and Rec Department did with the amphitheater and Murray Theater, I anticipate that they'll be doing additional work on programming, like this plaza out here, and additional open spaces in the future. Recommendation number 7, negotiate and enter into a master development agreement for the RDA-owned property in downtown Murray. This specifically is kind of, like I said, tailored towards Block 1. Elvon Farrell, he's our economic development specialist. He is currently working and meeting with developers to talk about Block 1. I know the RDA, I know you guys aren't wearing your RDA hats right now, but the RDA and the mayor are really aggressive about getting that under contract and built as soon as possible. So we're moving rapidly on all of this. So recommendation 8, if the downtown revitalization efforts are successful, expand the scope of the study to the east side of State Street. Like I said, we took that out of the plan, the east side of State Street, but overall, this should encompass the entire MCCD area to be more cohesive. So findings here. So Murray City General Plan provides direction and implementation through the 5 key initiatives. That first key initiative is the city center. I think it holds that number 1 spot for a reason, because it's Murray's biggest priority. It's what we all talk about and dream about and think about constantly. I don't know about you guys, but I end up doing it. Recommendations outlined in the plan provide clear, objective goals for the city to move forward in implementing the plan and furthering redevelopment in the downtown. So the proposed amendment is in harmony with the goals and initiatives of the Murray City General Plan. The MCCD Review Committee voted 5-0 to forward a recommendation of approval to the Planning Commission. And then the Planning Commission held a public hearing on March 7th, 2024, and voted 6-0 to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council. With that being said, I wanted to address the MCCD review recommendations. There were 3 that were included in the motion. One.
Can you hold on 1 second?
Yeah.
I want to turn to that page.
I apologize, I don't know what page it's on.
Oh, no, you're fine. I'm here.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So the MCCD Review Committee recommended to include a dedicated bike lane on 4800 South and Vine Street as part of recommendation 5.5. That, though it's not put into the plan as written, that's always been the intention from staff. It is to work on getting that implemented. The next one in the motion was include a recommendation for a preference for parking structures as opposed to surface parking lots in the parking warrant analysis recommendation. I'll give you a little bit of a spoiler alert for your RDA meeting, but in the CBD, in the CBD RDA area, it specifically talks about creating parking structures for downtown redevelopment. So that again, we didn't feel like it needed to be within this plan because that's part of the RDA's goals when working in the CBD area. Last one was to amend the map to indicate the DAR and Mercantile building color to be green instead of yellow. This was discussed at the Planning Commission, They discussed it quite a bit, and they ended up not making a recommendation to change staff's, the plan as is. They didn't make a recommendation for any substantial changes in the plan. So, with that, so the MCCD Review Committee, Murray City Planning Commission, and the planning staff recommends that the City Council approve the proposed amendment to the general plan adopting the MCCD strategic plan as reviewed in the staff report. Any questions I can answer at this point?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Anybody before? I have a question for you. I know it's recommended not to include the east side of State Street, but do we just need to make a motion tonight to include it in this plan?
So I would,
I don't know, is that a GL question?
it's not necessary, no, I don't think it's a GL question. What I think you would want to avoid is that this plan has adopted or has reviewed the west side of State Street, right? We have not done a deep dive and provided recommendations based on the east side.
So we didn't do the east side because at the meeting, somebody had opposed it, and you guys all agreed, I'm
The
assuming.
steering committee.
The steering committee.
Yeah, during the steering committee.
So with the next steps, would there be a steering committee for the east side, or would we, how would we move forward? Or is that going to be in the form-based code?
That will be in the form-based, when we work through a form-based code, it will be the entire MCCD district.
Okay.
We are not doing a form-based code for just this area, that's kind of has that dashed line around it.
Mhm.
The form-based code would be for everything in orange.
Okay.
So, well, except for down here. That will not be included in the form-based code. But up here, everything, east side of State Street, west side of State Street, north of 4800 South, south of Vine Street, all of it will be included in that area.
Okay.
So
I didn't want to be exclusionary
Yeah.
to the east side
And we will not be, so.
with.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, I received a question from one of my constituents with a concern about recommendation number 7.
Okay.
To negotiate and enter into a master development agreement for the RDL and property in downtown Murray. They want a clarification on that to make sure that we still retain control of the final decision of whatever is submitted to us.
So the RDA would review any proposed development, much like what had happened with the old City Hall property, something along those lines. I hope that's what they're intending.
So I just want to make sure I can
Yeah.
turn to this person and say, yes, we retain control in the final say of what's going to be.
Of what's,
happening.
of what will happen
Yeah.
on the property, for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, what happens after you sell the property? I mean, obviously, never mind, I'm not even going to go there. It's fine. Because that's just going to confuse and muddle everything, so never mind.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and open it up to public comments unless if you have any other comments. Oh, okay, after the citizen comments. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up to public comments. You have 3 minutes. Crystal is back here to the right of me, to the left of, in the room. And if you can fill out a form after you speak, she will find you as well. Please come up to the microphone, give your name and at least the district that you live in or your address if you feel comfortable, but we will get that information either way. So go ahead and come up to the mic. It's open. And Jennifer will keep time up here in the front and she will let you know when you have 30 seconds left.
Good evening. I'd like to request that I be given 5 minutes since I'm the Vice President of the Historic Murray First Foundation and representing that group here tonight.
Okay, perfect.
As you all know, our mission is dedicated to the advocacy, education, and fundraising for historic buildings in Murray. And so we do have a rather pinpointed goal here in our comments to this group tonight. I went to the MCCD committee meeting in January where they reviewed this plan, and they did make those 3 recommendations. And I went to the Planning Commission meeting where Zach presented the plan, and he didn't mention the MCCD committee proposed changes. Now, maybe they talked about it in the meeting before the meeting, because I didn't go to the meeting before the meeting, but it wasn't in his PowerPoint, and it wasn't in his presentation, and I had to be the one that said, wait a minute, those guys made a motion to save the DAR buildings, and pointing out, in fact, that they were pictured on the front of the plan. And how would it be? And they were consistent with the National Register Historic District and the damage that could happen when if they were demolished, and the condition, the historic district would be at risk of not qualifying anymore. The chair, Andy Hulka, even supplemented the Planning Commission packet at the end with the historic district nomination for both of those buildings. And still, they weren't mentioned, and yeah, they were tucked around there in the back. It was a 300-page packet. And then tonight, when Zach pointed out the strengths, he named all the strengths that were mentioned there, except skipped the one that said that downtown is a nationally registered historic district. Now, I don't know why Zach would fail to mention that and mention the other 4 things, but on page 23, where it gives the public synopsis of the importance, the 5 most important elements for an improved downtown are listed here and include historic building rehabilitation, street trees, event programming, dining, service establishments. Historic building rehabilitation were ranked as the 5 most important elements for an improved downtown. And as you guys well know, you've done many surveys, the Y2 Analytics survey, this survey, and consistently the public requests and expresses a preference for historic preservation of downtown State Street in the historic district. Now, so I say, well, what are you going to do? Maybe phase improvements, start on the 4800 South frontage, where you don't have to approach the demolition of the DAR buildings and the other important buildings that are owned by the city, and see how that goes. That way you could do the street improvements, you could have the developer be in charge of widening the sidewalk and putting in the bike path, etc. I did also want to mention that at the MCCD committee meeting, some of the members asked about the structural condition of the existing buildings on State Street that Murray owns. A staff member at that meeting suggested that there was a structural evaluation completed on those buildings, and it was determined that they weren't stable, that they couldn't be rehabilitated. But then the next day, of course, I submitted a GRAMA request for that structural evaluation. And within a few days, I was told that there was no such structural evaluation. So I don't know. I mean, it seems like for whatever reason, Murray City is making decisions that are inconsistent with the citizens' preferences. They're letting those buildings deteriorate by demolition, by neglect. There's plenty of of business opportunities that could be established in those businesses that would draw people into downtown, those buildings could still have a great future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, sorry.
I'll
Oh.
go back there and do that.
Carol, yeah. Or sorry, Crystal. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Robert Stefanick. I actually live on 48. I don't know who my district person is then. Oh, hi, Paul. So I just want to give my 2 cents on this whole project myself. As somebody who lives in the Harker Building, I think it is? Yeah. That's low-income family, low-income housing for a lot of us. I want to buy a house here in Murray. I'm not going to lie, I do. But I can't afford it right now, so I can only afford the rent in those buildings. Second, let's get off that. Second, I look at the Antique Mall and the Wright's costume every day. And I sit there and imagine what can be put in those buildings every day. I have actually even thought of going in great debt to come to this city and say, listen, I am willing to take a small business loan out to help remodel these buildings so that we can get a jazz club / comedy club in the old Antique Mall, or a restaurant, something in there to bring people to Murray. And at one time, the Wright's costume was the dance hall, because I remember seeing those every weekend. And in its history, it was also a movie theater, and turning into a mixed-use dance hall movie theater where we can bring money into the city. We can easily make a theater district where we can even have Sundance. Hey, you guys are outgrowing Park City. We have 2 theaters here, 3 if Desert Star wants to be part of that, where we have money coming from Sundance. Geez, I'm kind of nervous, sorry. Sundance, and we could be bringing money in. And on top of that, getting these buildings fixed and renting, that's money coming to you guys as the city, that outside the budget, you can do whatever you want. You want to throw a Murray City little fair in your guys' parking lot, you can. You want to close down all the little streets around here, you actually would have extra money doing that because we are renting the buildings from the city. I know it sounds crazy, but it actually works, because where I grew up, that's actually what they did. A lot of the city-owned buildings were rented out, and the cities actually had money to do cool little events like that. You want to bring people here? I would really recommend fixing up these buildings, because that's what a lot of us want. Heck, it's, like I said, I would go into debt to help you guys get these buildings fixed. And then doing these little events will actually bring people here, show everybody the historical properties of Murray. And on top of it, if we lose too many historical buildings, we lose our historical National Registry, and then our taxes go up. I don't think anybody here wants their taxes to go up. And that's all I got to say, so thank you very much.
Okay, next comment.
Good evening, I'm Clark Bullen, District 3, 5051 Treetop Circle. I would want to start by saying thank you to the staff for your hard work on this proposal. It reflects a lot of time and effort put in. And thank you to the mayor and council for hiring the consulting firm in response to the public advocacy that was opposed to the Edelin proposal, and for incorporating our myriad of citizen feedback. In my opinion, this proposal reflects an effort to listen to many years of citizen feedback. I see that, and so thank you. I think this plan is great, and the form-based code will get us to the historic downtown destination that the citizens want. I do agree with the MCCD review committee who voted with those 3 modifications as previously mentioned. I'd like to highlight the third one. It says the DAR and mercantile buildings be changed from the yellow category to be torn down to the green category kept. Andy Holka, who is the chair of that committee is a city planner for Salt Lake City. This third modification is particularly important to adopt prior to approval. Having a list of buildings recommended for demolition will influence the proposals of prospective developers for our downtown revitalization, as seen with the proposal of the Murray Tower Plaza project, who went and looked at all the citizen feedback and the general plan and all that had been done before. The Harker Building and Murray Mercantile are arguably the most historic buildings on that block and could anchor a future historic destination plaza. A visionary developer could see the potential in these historic buildings and view them as an asset. Alternatively, the recommended demolition list could be removed altogether, predisposing potential developers towards which buildings should be kept and which should be torn down is unnecessarily controversial and narrowing in scope. Let the developers create proposals based on the forthcoming form-based code, the citywide survey, and the general plan. Please remove the Harker and Mercantile from the yellow teardown list or remove that page altogether. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Whoever's closer to the mic.
Peter Kling, District 3. Good evening. The recommendation, the recommendations before you regarding Block 1, I recommend that you approve it. Staff and volunteer residents have devoted considerable time and resources to the question of what to do with this blighted area. This area and the questions about this have been studied for years. This area has been in a dilapidated state for at least 20 years. I think the last commercial opportunity there was the Grecian Diner that I used to frequent, and since then there really hasn't been much to go to. The question that comes up repeatedly is the notion of preservation of certain buildings. Not all of them, frankly, the two that were just referred to, I don't believe are owned by the city, so that's a whole other matter. Taxpayers have been supporting this RDA of this block for many years. After much input and planning, a concept is before you that recommends a form and design approach that represents a compromise between our past and future. It offers guidelines for zoning and developer RFPs. It preserves some classical architectural design with modern functionality to accommodate a growing Murray. It addresses height density and open space areas that don't exist now. Citizens' input was provided in multiple forums that reviewed the plan concepts at City Hall and in surveys. I say for those that desire a plan for taxpayer-funded restoration of existing buildings, I ask what alternative plan is offered to bring these buildings to code that meets today's fire and seismic standards and to be a functional use to help downtown housing or to provide modern commercial space. Who should fund this? How long should we wait as these buildings continue to deteriorate? This part of State Street makes Murray look shabby. I also remind citizens that the city has already committed substantial public funds to restoration in this area. Murray Theater, the Mansion, Townsend Home, and Chapel, all are a part of historic Murray. They offer use and purpose for generations to come. The theater will be available as a performance and multi-event center. The Mansion now hosts the Murray Museum and is available for functions. The cost for these buildings' restoration is expensive. And as we go into the theater, we find new things and new cost overruns associated with it. I wish resident preservation efforts would go towards fundraising and advocacy for those buildings that the city already owns. Along with the new Murray City Hall, there's now before the council an integrated approach that improves accessibility, walkability, and public spaces to have attractive venues for entertainment and shopping, none of which is available now. I hope the council will decide in favor of this proposed plan. Thank you.
I've got one more thing to put on the computer. My name is Delenn Barney. I live in District 1. Paul is my representative. I've lived in the MCCD area district, whatever you want to call it, over the years since 1963. I've seen a lot of changes happen here. When my family first moved here, it was a walkable area. There were stores to walk to, businesses to go to, and hardware stores, restaurants, a variety of things. And over time, that's considerably changed, especially when the Vine Street was extended through, which completely obliterated a lot of the downtown RD1 residential area. One of the last meetings I was in, there was some discussion about what used to be the T. Rose Diner and a building next to that I guess some trees and stuff had grown up in. The following picture is on the Murray City website that shows how at one time that was very well taken care of and nicely decorated. The house is on the right side of the picture, and now it's run down, and that is property owned by Murray City, and it is Murray City that is contributing to that particular problem. There's some discussion about the parking in the zone that's been discussed tonight, and how redevelopment has discussed some of it, or had some effect on it, but they have done a poor job. As reflective, if you was to look outside this building right now on Fifth Avenue, there's vehicles on both sides of the street, which makes traffic only one way. On the, I think it's Hanover that runs north and south, there's traffic on both sides that limits traffic. Same thing on Fourth Avenue. And when I first started this meeting, I walked over here tonight, there was a vehicle parked in blocking part of my driveway, parked right in front of a fire hydrant. Again, a safety hazard, and redevelopment and the city has not done anything to rectify those problems. When the basketball group went in, there was no discussion as far as how many parking places they would need. There was a soccer place that used to be there, and they only had one field and a certain number of players and spectators. Now there's 3 courts, 3 times as many spectators, 3 times as many participants, and it creates a parking problem. As far as this being a walkable area, I wasn't here when in 1920, well, in the early 1900s, before Murray Park was built, there was a baseball field just outside this area, and the property that I live on was one of 37 different parcels that was subdivided once the park was taken down and moved to the Murray City Park. It was classified as the Murray City Ball Grounds. In some of the places, I've had the opportunity to travel to Japan, Egypt, Germany, Greece, Florida, and a variety of countries, and see a variety of how historic sites can preserve the area, or if it's not taken care of, how it can make it just one of many places that no one really wants to go to. That is just here's another area, has no character, and it would be nice to keep some of the things that are currently here in Murray City as part of the character. Another thought I have is...
Sorry, we're out of time.
Okay.
But thank you. Finish your last thought. And then
My last thought is, if we didn't have change, we wouldn't have butterflies. But also, if we didn't have change, we also wouldn't have moths. So do you want to have butterflies or moths? Thank you.
Thank you, Bernie. I appreciate the photos, by the way.
Thank you.
That's what it could look like.
Hello, my name is Weston Firmage. I don't actually sleep in Murray, but I live at 4735 South State for the majority of hours of my life. I'm part of the Firmage family. We have owned the BMW store for the last 50 years. And I think this seems like a great push forward. We have renovated our building, which was part of the historic facilities. And we've kept the old fireplace facade for 50 years. So I think there are great ways to incorporate our history into modernization. And I would just say that we trust that you guys will be a great shepherd in whatever production occurs, one way or another, and would just ask for State Street to keep flowing during construction. So that would be our one ask. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you so much. Come on up. Just remember to fill out a form with Crystal over here to the left.
My name's Catherine Litchfield, and I'm in Rosalba's district. Can't see what.
District 3.
District 3. I just want to add my voice too. I don't think we should be telling owners of buildings or marking their buildings for demolition if we don't own them. I think that's kind of not American thing.
Anyone else? Okay. I'm going to close this out. Okay, I will go ahead and close the public hearing portion of this and turn it back over to Phil and Zach. Do you have any additional comments?
Yes, we do. I just wanted to mention a couple of items before Zach addresses the historic status of downtown. I think the big thing that we want to emphasize is this is a plan, it's recommendations, they're not mandates. We're not coming before the public to tell you that we've got a contract to tear down downtown. That's the last thing anybody wants. So it's important to remember that, the scope of this study. It's a vision for the future. It's a vision of what could happen eventually.
Phil,
Yes?
do you have a specific plan at this point that you're recommending?
No, we do not.
Okay, that's what I thought.
We do not. I wanted to point out that in the study, 81.3% of respondents want downtown renovation. We've been talking about downtown renovation my whole life, okay? And I've lived here my whole life, all right? 60.6% say there are safety concerns present downtown. That's because of the condition of downtown. The reason it is in this condition, if business wanted to come into these buildings, they could do it. They could approach the city. They could come in, make an offer, say, we've got a proposal. But you know what? You know what the costs are in renovating buildings, as Mr. Kling said. The Murray Theater is going to approach $10 million, okay? These buildings do not have adequate bathrooms, electrical, plumbing, entrances, exits, fire suppression systems. That's the obvious stuff. Building codes are very different today. And also, one-story buildings will not support redevelopment downtown. It's just not going to happen. They will stay like this. They will continue to crumble, or we'll knock them down and have vacant lots.
Okay, so there are a couple things that I want to address. Ms. Paul is correct in that I did miss that thing, and I'll own it. It was me looking at trying to get through a presentation. So, yes, I did mention 4 out of the 5, and I apologize for that. That is on me. I don't have these memorized, so I just picked, I looked at them, and read what I saw on there. So I will own that. I didn't read the historic district, so I apologize. That's on me. But what I will say is that I did do research on the historic district today because I wanted to see the validity of the historic district status and how that might be affected with any potential demolitions that may or may not happen in the future. When doing my research, I did look at the National Historic Register of I apologize, I don't remember the name off my head, and went through each property that's listed in there. There are 54 properties that are listed within the district, buildings, 54 buildings that are listed in the district. 29 of those are contributing. That leaves 54%. The district, if it goes below 50%, the district could be removed. So as I was reading through that, 4 properties have already been demolished. So currently, we are under 50%. Those addresses are 4775 South State and 4837 South Poplar, 4759 South State, and 4832 South State. All of those buildings have been either demolished or, in one of the cases, burned down. So we are already below that 50% threshold, which isn't great.
So does that mean that we're not a part of the National Registry anymore?
No,
then?
we are.
Okay.
But if somebody were to come forward, if somebody were to approach and require a review of it or something, it could be removed today, not tomorrow or the next day, with any potential future demolition. It could happen today. And I think there's been a misrepresentation of my approach to historic preservation. I do believe that historic preservation is important. I live in Midvale, next to historic Main Street. I see what is going on there, where they are preserving certain buildings that have value, that have significant value. And I think, but I'm also seeing what they are doing, which is building new buildings, and they are having a renaissance downtown that they've only done in the past 6 years. And Murray City has been working on this for 40 years, and nothing has happened. And Phil is correct. The city could be approached by anybody that wants to put a building or a business in one of the RDA's buildings. We don't get approached by that. We don't get approached. And if we do, it's usually tobacco stores or tattoo parlors. They're not your mom and pop, restaurants or hardware stores or anything of that nature. So I understand. I understand historic preservation. I'm a trained planner. I understand it, but I don't like walking downtown, down here. This is where I am most of, 2/3 of my life lately, and it's sad when I have to walk on Block 1 or down State Street. I would like to be in a vibrant community, and I think this plan gets us to getting to that point. I want to live here. I want to live down here. And I'm actively working on that to try to get to live downtown. And we'll just see. So sorry, I got a little emotional there. Apologize. The other thing I wanted to mention is like I kind of mentioned, the minutes reflected the recommendations by the MCCD Review Committee. Those were provided to the Planning Commission.
And I did watch it.
And they were read.
Yeah.
Those are provided and read, just like they were provided to this council, both the Planning Commission minutes and the MCCD Review Committee minutes.
And there was discussion from them about that.
Yeah, exactly. I think, I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Who would like, anybody? Dan?
At the risk of rubbing this in and in and in and in, does the city own the Dara building?
No.
It is privately owned, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Before we move on, I didn't mention this, so do I need to open it back up for the public comment? Sorry, we had some online comments. Should I open that back up just to state what I was going to state? Okay, so we're going to open up the public comment for a second portion of this, and then I'm going to close it. I'm going to read one item that did come in time in terms of a public comment, but we do want to recognize that we did receive other comments emailed to the council today. This one is from Joseph Stanford regarding May 7th City Council meeting to be considered strategic plan for Murray downtown for Murray City staff and Planning Commission. Dear Ms. Kennedy, I'm very concerned that our proposed plan for Murray City State Street, which proposes to demolish the Harker and Merck and other historic buildings, will cause the number of historic buildings in the area to drop to 50%. This means that MCCD zone may no longer qualify for National Historic District. This means that means that the remaining historic buildings will lose their tax benefits and any remaining historical projections. This will accelerate the irreversible loss of Murray's historic character and make us blandly indistinguishable from our neighboring cities. Maintaining only the Murray Theater and the Murray Mansion are not sufficient by themselves to preserve historic character in Murray downtown. Please record my strong objection to this plan to demolish more historic buildings, including the Harker and Merck building on Murray State Street. And I recognize that we have two others. The rest of the council has seen your emails, and we will put them on the record as well. So I will now close the public comment to that and continue on.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, so Councilmember Pickett and I went for a walk with Phil and with Elvon, and we walked the whole block, and I asked Phil, what do we own? When we got onto State Street, I said, what do we own? Where is the dividing line? And he said, right here. So where it's green and it looks like marbly, that is not the city's, correct?
Correct.
The other south side, the city owns, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I understand that we don't own it. We're not going to tell those people that own those buildings, the city's not going to tell those people that own those buildings what to do. But I did get some information that I would like to pass on to those people that own the buildings, that in the case of the Harker and Merck, there are at least 3 applicable financial programs. If the buildings continue as housing, they would be eligible for the Utah State Historical Preservation Tax Credit Program. This program provides a credit towards state income tax up to 20% of the eligible project cost. The buildings also would be eligible for the federal tax credit, providing up to another 20% of project cost. Together, these programs equal 40% of project costs. The third program is the low-income housing tax credit. When you combine these programs with savings of demolished costs, the financial picture changes substantially. So if you could preserve the original artifact that the new development is based on by simply protecting it, and also know that the private sector could deliver a renovation if desired, why wouldn't you do it? Now, we're not going to go tell those people that own the buildings north of the building that the city owns. We're not going to do that, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct.
So I don't see the problem. The only problem I see is when you've got the MCCD people making a recommendation on page 9 of the January 25th, 2024 minutes, asking for those 3 recommendations, And the one that got to me was that the DAR and mercantile buildings be changed from the yellow category, you know where I'm going, Zach, to be torn down to the green category, kept. Okay? When those recommendations were sent over to the planning commissioners, why did they not add those recommendations to their recommendations? And I went through the meetings, and the only thing that, let me find my page, was from Commissioner Richards, agreed that there were a lot of good comments, many of which he agreed with. He said at this point they are just making a general motion to go forward with the process. He made a motion that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for process proposed amendments to the general plan adapting the MCCD strategic area plan as reviewed in the staff report. But he didn't make any reference to those three things that the MCCD wanted them to look into. Can you explain why, if we have an MCCD committee, if they're making these recommendations, why are they not being looked at by the planning commissioners?
So I will answer your question similarly to some other recommendations. So it's the exact same thing as if the Planning Commission were to forward a recommendation to the City Council, and the City Council decides that they want to go against the Planning Commission's recommendation. They didn't bring it up. It was brought up to them at the meeting by Ms. Paul, right? And they decided they didn't want to have the discussion. And so I can't speak to why they did it, because I'm not 7 people, as much as I try. So I can't speak to what their reasoning was, but it's just the same as if the recommendation comes before you from the Planning Commission and you decide to go a different direction than what the Planning Commission recommended.
I have a question just to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, Pam. Was there any recommendations about types of funding from this group?
There wouldn't be.
Or
Planning
from
Commission
Levenger?
But Planning
From
Commission
Levenger.
does not.
The reason why I ask is because I do know that CDBG funding can be used for certain like housing redevelopment areas. And so I was curious to know if they had any financial recommendations or funding recommendations that come federally or in other areas that can help with rehabilitating
No, that's
said
not.
building, or even, I mean, I understand it's not our building, but if there was, sorry, I was just curious. I was just curious if there was other types of funding or any recommendations that they did recommend.
So there were no recommendations. As Ms. Paul just presented, there are there's a list of grant money available. That's typically for infrastructure improvements at the end of the plan. It's in the appendix. But typically, the Planning Commission won't get involved with financial matters at all.
Right, but I mean, we can ask, we can ask for it.
Yeah, you can definitely, ask for those things because you are the legislative body and you control the funding of the city. The Planning Commission is it's the land use authority. They're looking at the land use of a property. They don't get involved with budgets. They don't get involved with funding of things or.
But I guess what my question is, if we hired Mr. Levenger to come and do this group activity, I guess my expectation was that there would be some sort of recommendations about funding or types of improvements that could come from this area, or could we see that in the form-based code
You'll probably
as well?
Yeah, you'll see that definitely in the form-based code. But that's part of the document. Within the document. In those recommendations, I believe one of them is to do a infrastructure, I
Like a
can't remember
facade.
the exact wording, let me get to it. It was create an infrastructure project schedule to improve multimodal accessibility within the city-owned right-of-way. And that's where he provided that list at the end in the appendix of opportunities for grant money to go forward with that. As far as CDBG and things like that, that wouldn't have been, that's getting kind of too nitty-gritty into housing rehabilitation, things like that.
But that's what those types of funds can do.
Oh, yeah, they can definitely do
Okay.
those things, yeah. But they wouldn't be involved in those types of recommendations.
Okay, and then can you just touch on what somebody had said about our taxes would go up in terms of removing the historical registry or
Thank you, yeah.
reference?
So, because a property is located within a historic district, it doesn't get a tax cut or credit automatically. And it wouldn't be passed on to necessarily renters. What that does is, it's a tax credit for improvements. So if somebody were to reinvest in their property, they could get a tax credit based on kind of what Councilwoman Cotter said, up to 20%, or 40 or whatever, of the cost of the renovation. So
the owners of the mercantile could totally use those incentives
Yeah, they could
to
definitely
do that. Okay. With that being said, do we receive any tax incentives or anything from the state for having a national registry, historical registry, or even national funding from that?
No, I don't think the city receives, we don't receive any money.
Okay, I
from
was
it.
just
At
curious.
least, I assume that. I wouldn't know, I'm not the finance person.
Okay.
She's something.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've seen Brenda shake her head no.
Yeah.
But I was curious to know if we did or if we didn't.
Yeah, and I don't think we would qualify, so if we were to, because we don't pay taxes on property we own, that would be paying ourselves, right? So we don't pay taxes on property we own. So I don't even think we'd be eligible to apply for something like that because we don't pay taxes on it anyway.
And can you remind me, because you've brought it up, I've heard you bring it up several times about State Street and housing tattoo parlors, but can you remind me of some of the conditional uses within the zone and who can be in these areas and who can't?
Yes.
Do you know? Sorry, I just don't, what I don't want is that we have this perception that State Street is only to tattoo parlors. I mean, we have
do have
various
soy.
businesses.
Yeah, we have soy, we have,
and very successful businesses that are not tattoo parlors.
They are very successful. What I mentioned is that when we've been approached from businesses to rent city-owned
areas.
property, those have been largely smoke shops and tattoo parlors.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I think.
I would
yeah, go
like
ahead.
to say a couple of things. Number one, I want to thank the Economic Development team for the incredible work you guys have been doing so far and for answering our questions and for standing there and taking a beating sometimes, but answering our questions. I also want to thank, it's the truth, sometimes they take a beating. I want to thank Margaret for coming and expressing words, and Clark and Robert and all those of you who spoke today. I love seeing citizens speaking up and sharing information that we need. All of us want to move forward with the development of downtown. We're not going to sit and spin tires. We're all looking forward to keep this ball rolling. But we have to do it in a prudent way, respecting the processes. So I'm going to make a motion before we vote on this, and I want to make a motion that we remove the page 15 that has the map showing buildings to be demolished. We just take it out altogether, and that we change the wording on page 13 where it recommends, I'd see the bottom of the first paragraph there where it says, in an effort to balance historic preservation with growth, these concepts recommend the removal of 9 buildings throughout the project area and the rehabilitation of adopted reuse of 10 others. I would like to remove that phrasing from there before we vote on this.
Would you repeat that?
I make a motion to remove page 15 from the recommendation packet and the last phrase of page 13 opening paragraph.
And what does that say?
That says, in an effort to balance historic preservation with growth, these concepts recommend the removal of 9 buildings throughout the project area and the rehabilitation or adaptive reuse of 10 others.
But if that's the recommendation,
It's just
I don't know
one.
if it's our role to change that.
We
It
can
is-
accept whatever recommendation we want, and we can cut whatever we don't want to accept. And I don't want to accept that recommendation as a council. I want to cut it out, both of those. The map showing the buildings to be demolished, the blue and green famous colors there, and the phrasing that talks about 9 buildings being recommended for being demolished. I don't want to plant that idea in any developer. I want them to come to us with a clean slate, not trying to read our mind and saying, I think the city wants these destroyed or torn down, so we're going to give them this plan that has this building removed. I'd like for the developer to come in and say, you know, I could use these historic buildings to add flavor to what I'm going to do. I'd love to preserve the Dar building and make it part of my development.
Does that say they're required to?
Pardon me?
Does that say they would be required to if they were to develop that?
No. What we're doing is we're just removing from the conceptual design the recommendation to demolish buildings. That's
Okay.
all we're doing.
So that's a recommendation, not that if you take on this development, you have to do that.
No. My motion is to remove the recommendation to demolish these buildings.
Okay.
In the wording. Would you be open, sorry, I'm going to add to this. Would you be open to leaving the page but removing it as torn down with the yellow highlighted areas?
I don't think we ought to have anything that gives an implication that we recommend tearing down anything.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that we remove where the areas that say torn down and that, but keeping the page.
To me, it still implies that
Okay.
they need to be torn down. I would feel much better if we didn't have this page.
Okay, I'm
That's
just
why I
getting
make that motion.
clarification.
Yeah.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay. We will go ahead and move for a vote.
Ms. Turner,
No.
Mr. Hawk,
Aye.
Mr. Pickett,
Aye.
Ms. Cotter,
Aye.
Ms. Dominguez.
Aye. All right. That has passed. Now, do we need to make a motion to now, to adopt the rest of the recommendations of this packet, unless somebody else has another recommendation?
Do you guys have questions for me?
Do you
I'm
have
happy
questions?
I'm happy to stand up here for sure. But if
We
if
could
you-
stay here until
I can-
10.
yeah,
Let's make it a
I'll-
1 a.m.
yeah,
meeting
come on,
like Salt
we're
Lake.
good. We're good. Yeah,
Just kidding.
Yeah, if you guys have any other questions.
I just think, because I'm sure all the council members have, but today I've been text, email, called, and I think the word demolish really scares the citizens. And I think with that word demolish and the map that Paul recommended and the yellow category to be torn down to the green category to the word kept, that just the word demolish just scares them. And I just think to make
Sure.
everyone happy, just.
No, and you know, it
And I
was the
know we
first-
don't own the buildings. I
Right.
know that as a city council person, I know we don't own the buildings. I know where the dividing line
Yeah.
is. I know the city isn't going to touch those.
Sure.
But it's just that wording, it's the map, scares them.
It does.
And I really thank Phil and Elvon and you for taking Paul and I on that walk. I have the visual, I know
I
where
was
that.
in Minneapolis,
I
so I
know,
didn't
you were
take
at a
it for walk.
conference, but I really appreciate that walk because I have that visual now in my head of what we own. And whatever those people want to do with their property, it's their property.
I agree.
I don't
And-
want people to
yeah.
come into my home and tell me I have to do certain things to it.
Right.
When they don't own my home.
Yeah, and
I
I just
own
want
my
to
own.
make sure, I wanted to let you guys know too, it doesn't really matter now.
Yeah.
But when I was writing notes for tonight's meeting, that was the first thing I wrote in my meeting notes, is that we're fine removing that map. I think the way that it was worded was inappropriate, and it could have been said differently. So I actually welcome removing the map. It's already done now, but so, but it was, I wanted you guys to know that, I did see it as problematic, it being with specific kept and torn down. Even if it were different wording, I think it was just kind of, it gives the wrong impression, so.
I just wanted to say thank you all. I think you guys have definitely done the work.
We're trying.
And you're continuously trying. So I really appreciate that. And I'm sure, this work, it will be controversial even moving forward in some ways and somehow. So, but I really look forward to what's to come with the form-based code and what the opportunities are. And so I do sincerely appreciate you, and I sincerely appreciate the citizens for being here.
Break in some walking shoes, because that
Yeah.
form-based code, you guys are going to walk this place like,
I mean,
you're going to know
yes,
back
of
and forth.
course. I live right there. We can walk down my street too,
Awesome.
because it's a part of it.
Yep.
So I really do appreciate all you guys have done, and thank you, Paul, and everybody on the council. I know this was very contentious for us all, so.
For sure.
Any other comments, Adam? We haven't heard from you.
I make a motion.
You beat me to
I
it.
make a motion
Yes.
to adopt an ordinance relating to land use, amending the general plan to adopt the Murray City Central District Strategic Area Plan.
I
With
will-
amendments.
With amendments.
Yeah.
I will second that. Brooke?
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Hawk?
Aye.
Mr. Pickett?
Aye.
Ms. Cotter?
Aye.
Ms. Dominguez?
Aye. All right, we are moving on. Okay, I will go ahead and turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you, Rosalba. I just also want to thank the council and our planning department. Really, this is the way it's supposed to work. You're supposed to ask questions. You're supposed to be able to present. And I've said this before, and Peter, you said what I was thinking. We are working hard to save certain buildings. The theater's one. I'll tell you right now. I signed those things, the expenditures on those, and we're spending a lot more money than you would have spent if you were putting a new building in. And that is taxpayers' money. I hear the council, and I say it all the time, we're taking from the taxpayers. That's what you did when you decided to do that, because that's what we felt the citizens wanted. There is a limit that you can do to, like everyone said, we don't own a lot of those buildings. Call, I heard Rosalba say, could our Dar building get a tax break? Yes, but call them up and ask if that's what they would like to do. I can't tell you, because I'm not going to tell you my conversation with them, but make that call and you will know how they feel. And that's how it is with all these buildings that we don't own. And we are doing the best we can. And we've got the theater, like Peter said, we've got the museum, we have the Townsend Home, we have our, Armory building that we're going to restore. And, we're finding out there are, sometimes the foundation doesn't even exist in certain parts of those things. So, and I've never seen anybody give us money for that. I'd sure like to see a group of people that want this to get us some money. That would be awesome. Put your money where your mouth is. I would love to see that. I've never seen that in the 12 years or 10 years I was on the council. Never. I heard a lot of talk. I saw no money. So it comes from our citizens. This money does not come from a tree that grows money. It comes from our hard-earned working citizens. So thank you for that. I appreciate the conversation today and the discussion. As far as all I have is, Kim reminded me that we have food trucks that started up tonight in our park, and that will continue on every Tuesday throughout the summer. You will see some of that happening here. We're going to have some food trucks out in the plaza in the next few months. You'll see some.
Can we do that on a day we are not in session?
No kidding, huh? Or can we extend it until 10 o'clock at night? So we can do that. Yes, we would love to do that, but that's what we put money into doing Christmas decorations, and we're hoping to do a little bit more this year because it brought tens of thousands of people to this city. So yes, you do have to spend money to get citizens to come in, and we're willing to do that, and you have been willing to do that, and we appreciate that. So that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor. And can I get a motion to adjourn? Well, can I make I can make the motion.
I'll motion
I make
to
a motion
adjourn.
that we adjourn.
A
So
second.
adjourn. Thank you.